John, it was remarkable how calm he was. And then just turned on the charm. It was almost like he just expected this outcome, and this is where they were heading, that he wants to pit the masses against the institutions, and ultimately, this is the whole objective, to go to the electorate with and say, everyone's against you, I will help you deliver this.
It's not a stupid strategy, is it?
Can I bring some Americanness into this conversation? This is the BBC. Jeremy Northam played Anthony Eden in The Crown. He was like lights out. He blew me away. How he got the heart attack in the coronary of Anthony Eden and all that politics. And then there's Pip Torrens, who was in The Crown advising the Queen, and he's also in Poldark as well. Our American synthesis of you guys is through these masterpiece theater shows. It's Poldark and The Crown and the rest of this baloney. What do we get wrong when we see the United Kingdom through the prism of your soap operas?
Well, the class warfare that you see
I'm asking you. I mean, in Downton Abbey and all of it. What do we get wrong about you guys when we look at these manufactured stuff?
I think again and again and again, the number one issue for me, and Hugo can weigh in with his own interpretation on this, London is not the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom is not London, and I think that's why many people missed the Brexit movement, is they didn't get out of the nation's capital. And by the way, what you see what you see in Parliament is not representative of the country either.
Hugo?
Well, I'm going to respectfully disagree on this. Is that as strong as I'll be? But Parliament is more representative of the country, and actually, obviously, there was a general election after the Brexit vote, so I think Parliament is representative of the divides that exist.
Hugo, let me finesse it just a little bit further. The reason I've said this is that when it went to a vote for the referendum, the majority said leave.
They did.
The overwhelming majority of Parliament is not behind that. And when I say they're not representative of the country, I mean on that single issue. Yeah, and they've proven again and again and again that they're not.
I would say that's fair analysis. But I would absolutely agree with your analysis that London is not the rest of the UK. If you go out into the Shires or any regions, rural communities in particular, so the conurbations all tended to vote to remain, but all the rural constituencies voted out. So there is this divide. What do we miss? That cosmopolitan versus rural divide. What do we miss? The fair play and the cliches, if you like, about fair play, the cliches about politeness and institutional reverence and so on. Those things, I think, have changed materially. So there's almost this sort of revolutionary atmosphere in the Shires.
This will be out on our podcast, folks. We'll have this out worldwide today with Hugo.
Thank you, Hugo.
Rogers at Deltec. This is really, really interesting on the Bahamas and of course...
And the Shires, too.
Yeah, the Shires.
Which I am from the Shires.
So am I.
What's a Shire? What's a Shire?
Warwickshire. Which Shire is yours?
Hertfordshire.
Interesting. There we go. Hugo Rogers, great to see you. Tom's got no idea what's going on.
Pip Torrens amazes me. I mean, Pip Torrens, every show he's in, he's like takes over the lens. We need some British music here to keep it going.
Nice. Can we have Led Zeppelin? Does that count?
We should do Zeppelin. I like that idea. Worldwide. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
London calling to the faraway towns. Now war is declared and battle come down.
1 in 10 Londoners surveyed said they'll give more to charity in the next 12 months. Are you one of them? At CAF, we help generous people like you support their favourite charities by making giving simple. And we provide charities with the tools they need to perform at their best. So together, we can make a bigger difference for our communities. We're a charity and a champion for better giving. We are CAF, and we make giving count. Visit cafonline.org to find out more.
At Argos, our toy event is on. Join in the fun with up to half-price savings on hundreds of top brand toys, including Nerf and LOL Surprise. Enjoy same-day home delivery 7 days a week.
Yay for play!
With Argos, you're good to go. Offer ends the 1st of October. Delivery conditions apply, subject to availability. Selected lines. Order by 6 p.m, 90% UK coverage.
1 in 2 people believe they should check their work email on holiday. 1 in 3 believe it's okay to eat a colleague's lunch. And 1 in 14 believe it's okay to steal loo roll from work. People believe all sorts of strange things. Some people believe that insurance companies try to avoid paying claims. But last year, Zurich paid 99% of insurance claims made by their UK customers. Zurich, an insurance company you can believe in. To find out more, visit zurich.co.uk/99.
Financial capital of the world, 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Surveillance Economics.
The Federal Reserve's independence is crucial.
Central banks should be prepared and not presumptuous.
Finance.
In order to grow, you need to innovate.
Global money doesn't like uncertainty.
Investment.
I think the issue in the market is really more about the possibility of a recession in the next couple of years.
I do think we need to get back to where we have always been, the American dream.
Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrow on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. John Farrow and Tom Keene. We're 1 hour away from a mystery in Washington. That will be Mr. McGuire's testimony, the acting director of intelligence. This is an extraordinary moment for Washington, whatever your political persuasion. We're going to do the must interview of the day here in a moment. Let me get right to it. Dollar strength. Futures up 7, bouncing around. Dow futures 27,031. SPX below 3,029.93. But the dollar strength does get my attention. 99.07 on the vanilla DXY index. If you know what that means, great. If you don't know, don't worry about it. Euro 109.33, and it's cheaper to go to London, 123.47. Farrow's broke today.
You're on form today, aren't you?
I'm away on form. But you know what it is? Afterthoughts going away on a school retreat.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
She goes, can I bring my Mac AirBook Pro, whatever it is? She wants to watch YouTube on her retreat. They're out in the middle of nowhere in the autumnal castles.
With no Wi-Fi.
She says, can I take Vet Bill? I said, that's a great idea. No, she's not bringing the Peloton bike, wise guy. I need to use it this weekend. Bloomberg Surveillance this morning, brought to you by Cohn Resnick. Check out Business of Baseball, an original MLB video series exploring the business side of America's pastime. Visit CohnResnick.com/MLB. Cohn Resnick Advisory Assurance Tax. Folks, I was taking the surveillance nap yesterday. Farrow was already up from his because he had to walk back from the plaza to our main headquarters here. And you witnessed the president in the press conference. Frame that as we go to the outstanding Greg Valliere.
It was at the Intercontinental Hotel here in New York City, wrapping up the UN General Assembly, all the people they'd spoken to over the last couple of days, Tom. And I think some people got the sense that he looked tired and defeated. I got the sense that he actually looked quite controlled. He wasn't erratic. There wasn't loads of energy. It was just quite controlled and steady through the whole news conference. What was interesting to me was the subject matter. Of course, many of the reporters wanted to ask him about the call with Ukraine. The president wanted to focus on the economy, and at one point actually asked Larry Kudlow to stand up and talk to him about the PMIs that we'd had earlier in the week. And the president and that focus for me was quite interesting. And then he brought up trade, and he said, we're getting closer and closer to a deal. And I just wonder if this is where this is heading, whether the president is going to try increasingly to get people to focus on the economy and talk up the prospect of a deal with China as this drama unfolds in Washington.
Bring in the gentleman from New Hampshire. He'll have perspective.
Greg Valliere joining us now, AGF Investments Chief U.S. Policy Strategist. Greg, great to have you with us on the program. Just talk to me about that news conference. I'm sure you watched it as well. What your takeaway was?
I agree. Great points. I think that Trump will try to divert attention away from this fiasco and talk about the economy. We'll see a lot more of that.
Does that mean anything for the prospect of a trade deal, though, Greg?
No.
And that's the problem, isn't it?
I don't think so, for the simple reason that there are still so many issues they haven't resolved. And I think even if they get back on track next week when they begin meeting again, we're still looking at 3 or 4 months.
Greg, we've got dueling banners right now, and it's rare to see Fox and MSNBC in agreement. The headline is Whistleblower Complaint Declassified. They both agree on the actual news, and then from there, they and the nation will diverge on this debate. Is this debate different because of the specificity of intelligence and defense?
Yeah, apparently he goes a lot further than just the transcript of the phone call. This is going to be a tough one for the White House, but I make the point consistently with our clients. There are not 67 votes in the Senate to convict. I mean, this is not a good story for Trump's reelection. This is not a good story for if you want to get anything done in Washington, but I don't see Congress ousting him.
Well, Greg, to that point, let's talk about policy, because that's what's market participants are increasingly just focused on solely trying not to trade on the politics, trying to trade on the policy. You subscribe to the idea that Washington shuts down and nothing gets done because other people have told me otherwise. Why is that your view, Greg?
Oh, I think it's so toxic. It's so radioactive. And Nancy Pelosi has bigger fish to fry than the U.S., Canadian, Mexican trade deal. So I do think some issues that I was hoping would get done now look less likely. The trade deal, any kind of drug pricing deal, and the budget is going to be a mess over the wall with Mexico, lasting probably into the holidays.
Greg, you're an expert on the 28 flavors of the Democratic Party. For those of you younger, before the regime of Clinton, the regime of Obama, there was a fractious Democratic Party, which Greg Valliere is expert on. How will those districts react to all of what we're going to see here in the coming weeks, where there's interesting moderation, where there's interesting centrist Democrats?
Well, God forbid I should be a cynic, but I think that the key thing here is the polls. I think the Democrats will be motivated by just how ginned up the public is for impeachment. Right now, the public doesn't want it. The public doesn't want to put the country through it. I think that's going to be a dominant part of the narrative.
Greg, we've got a recent sample size of what, two proceedings around this kind of story. Some happened, some didn't, but we basically have two to go on, Nixon and Clinton. Greg, is that a sample size that's big enough to really draw conclusions on what this will ultimately mean for the public?
No, or the markets. I think it's too small a sample. We had a lot of other things going on with Nixon, inflation, OPEC, things like that. But I do think for the markets, this is just background noise. It's going to be background noise unless there's a real chance to oust Trump, and that's not going to happen.
Greg, well, let's go over to how you can finesse your politics into the economics and investment of our listeners. If trade will be the trade war will be affected by all of this, and Joyce Chang of J.P. Morgan's quantifying 0.4 percentage points of GDP within the J.P. Morgan analysis down, the cost of tariffs per American household, etc. These are real impacts that are going to click in this political cycle, aren't they?
Yes, you're right, and I think there's a real risk that Donald Trump becomes even more erratic. One day he'll say we got a deal, the next day he'll bash the Chinese as being harmful for the world. So that kind of uncertainty really does hurt GDP.
What's your? I mean, I know, Greg, you don't do a GDP number, but is it Greg Valliere sub 2%, or is it Morning in America above 2%?
I still think we can grow at 1 3/4, maybe even 2%. Nothing to write home about.
Greg, which politician can get elected on a nominal GDP run rate sub 4%? Either party, you can't get reelected.
Well, let me push back, though. Unemployment is 3.7. An unemployment rate of 3.7 is a big deal, and I think that helps him.
I think that's the key too, Greg. Is unemployment rising or falling? Isn't that ultimately the story?
With it, yeah.
And are people satisfied with the state of the economy? Greg, what's your read on that at the moment, looking at the polls?
If there's a sleeper here on the economy, it's the Farm Belt. I think suddenly Iowa, maybe even Missouri, are in play. Trump's going to have to spend time and money there because they're in a recession, and the China trade war has badly hurt farmers.
The Wall Street Journal had that great scattered out chart this morning on soybean effect across those important states. Let's identify one of those states. That would be Hubert Humphrey. That's HHH, Greg, as you remember. Pharaoh has no idea what we're talking about. But come on, Minnesota is old line Scandinavian Democrat. Not, right?
Well, the White House thinks they can win Minnesota. I'll believe that when I see it. If the nominee wants a little protection, maybe Amy Klobuchar becomes a running mate. But I think the Midwest is really in play. And whether you say it's 0.4, 0.5, I think the story here is the uncertainty, both on the part of farmers and small businesses.
Can you take it down to counties? Are you going to tell me outside Cincinnati matters?
Well, tell me who wins Columbus, Ohio, and that's huge. But no, I wouldn't say that. But again, I'd look at the Farm Belt. That could be a real sleeper.
Okay,
Greg, thank you.
Greg, thank you so much. Really valuable. Before this, I mean, John, we're 51 minutes away.
What do you make of that? Senator Klobuchar of Minnesota could be the running mate.
That's typical Valliere talk. He does that even better with a beverage of his choice in his hand, telling me who's going to be VP. I mean, are they all running for VP? I'm asking rhetorically.
I imagine anyone with 1%, 2%, 3%, 4% in the polls, that's what they're hanging out for.
Yeah, well, Mr. Klobuchar, we'll see. But I don't. That whole parlor game awaits. It's early.
I agree. It's ages away.
I mean, how long is the general election? If we get a UK general election, November what? Early November, later?
If they called one now, I think the earliest they could do it is early November.
That's so sane. Why can't we do that here?
I don't know.
I mean, do people campaign for 3 weekends?
Less money involved too in the UK.
I love the results. I watch them on C-SPAN. You
enjoy watching that come in.
They're really local.
Yeah. You get you find out who the MP of.
They're not holding them.
Whatever town
the Ritz-Carlton Hotel.
No, it's very, very. It's the local town hall.
Should we do a data check since it is Bloomberg survey?
Would you like to, or should
we should do that? Futures up 7, Dow futures up 70. John Farrow glued to bonds.
Treasury yield lower by 2 basis points. You caught me off guard. 171.
Go to 3 decimals.
The 2-year note 1.673%. There we go. Did you like that? In foreign exchange, you snapshot a G10. The euro softer by 0.1%. I've never seen one man so excited about an IPO.
It's Peloton.
What was that? Now for the news from New York City, here is Michael Barr.
I got to follow that.
McKinnon, we're live. Be quiet, please.
Jonathan Tom, thank you very much. House Democrats, they are expected to press Acting Director of National Intelligence Joseph Maguire on why he withheld a secret whistleblower complaint involving President Trump and his phone call with the president of Ukraine. Maguire will testify starting in about an hour from now, and Bloomberg will bring it to you live. Mourners are bringing flowers to the residence of late French President Jacques Chirac. Chirac died today at age 86. The Port Authority votes today in New Jersey on a measure to raise tolls and fares at tunnels, bridges, and airports. Global News, 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Jonathan Tom.
You're cleaning this up. Carry on.
I'm sorry. I'm watching Cody Rigsby's latest video. I mean, Cody's my hero. Cody Rigsby gets it done for Peloton. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Robert Cohen holds 3 degrees from New Jersey Institute of Technology. Today, he leads research and development for medical device maker Stryker Corporation. He also helps Stryker recruit top talent from universities like NJIT.
If you look at where NJIT students are going, go to a career fair. There are lines of companies that want to get into the career fair, and it's because they see those students as practical, innovative. I can tell you for a fact, because we hire many NJIT graduates, these students can contribute right from the get-go. The guy who reports to me, who's in charge of all my implant development, NJIT grad. The guy who reports to me in charge of all my robotics development, NJIT grad. They contribute to the development cycle. They contribute to the testing. We have NJIT graduates in manufacturing. We have NJIT graduates in quality assurance. We have NJIT graduates in our computer science. These students are some of our best.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at storiesofinnovation.njit.edu.
Rich is just a really, really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again. And this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. Apps are not all protected, subject to availability and conditions.
Today, your information is more exposed than ever. When you shop, sign in, or browse, you could be vulnerable to cybercriminals. More online threats demand more protection. That's why new Norton 360 provides multiple layers of protection, combining device security, secure VPN, password manager, and cloud backup all in one solution. Get new Norton 360, starting at $24.99 for the first year.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not Smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month, with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's Smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
Daddy, you know my birthday party?
Yes.
Can we do painting?
Of course.
And can we have fireworks?
Absolutely.
And can everyone in Year 4 come?
The more the merrier.
You're very relaxed about this.
At John Lewis Finance, we've crafted our Premier Home Insurance with real care, so it provides accidental damage cover for those unexpected mishaps. We're also a Which recommended provider for Home Insurance 2019. Find out more at johnlewisfinance.com. Home insurance from John Lewis Finance. Excess and exclusions apply.
Influential conversations from Bloomberg Television. Here's Sherry Ann.
Anna Han is equity strategist at Wells Fargo Securities and has been writing about what impeachment really means for the markets. Anna, great to have you with us. There's a lot of drama over impeachment, lots of headlines, but it seems, at least for today, the markets were able to forget about all of that and focus on the trade optimism, especially coming with the recent limited trade agreement with Japan.
Yes, you make a great point, Sherry. You saw the market kind of shake off any weakness today and from yesterday about impeachment. While impeachment and political headlines have been in the forefront, markets are focused on what is the environment now? What are the fundamentals? And we've actually based this on two historical points. We go back to May of 1974, where the House had just begun impeachment hearings for President Nixon, who resigned in August. But the 12 months leading up to the impeachment hearings, you saw massive underperformance in the market. While some people may point to, okay, that could be driven by those impeachment concerns, really, we had already been in a 2-year heavy bear market at the time. If you take the other side, another example was President Clinton. If you look in December of 1998, the late 1990s were characterized by a strong bull market. 12 months leading up to the House approving articles of impeachment for President Clinton, you saw outperformance in the market of nearly 24%.
Hear more interviews like this one on Bloomberg Television, streaming live on Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg mobile app, or check your local cable listings. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. Futures are higher this morning. Let's go to the First Word breaking news desk for today's morning call. Here's Bill Maloney. Bill, good morning.
And good morning, Karen. U.S. futures have added to their gains since the last time we spoke. Dow futures now up 68 points. S&P's gained 6, and NASDAQ futures climbed by 10. The U.S. 10-year yield at 1.71%. Gold is little changed, while European markets are climbing, led by 1% gains in the U.K. Back in the U.S., a busy day on the economic front at 8:30. GDP, core PCE, trade balance, and initial jobless claims. At 10 o'clock, pending home sales, and at 11 o'clock, the Kansas City Fed. Regarding earnings this morning, FactSet is down 3.3% pre-market after its numbers. And in other news, FT reported that WeWork may get another $1 billion from SoftBank. Regarding IPOs, Peloton's 40 million shares were priced at $29 per share at the top of the range. And wrapping things up, HD Supply was downgraded to equal weight at Barclays. AbbVie upgraded to buy at Citigroup. Northern Trust downgraded to neutral at UBS. And Square was upgraded to outperform over at Wells Fargo. Live from the First Breaking News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Karen?
All right, Bill, thank you. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg Times Squawk on your terminal, SQUAWK. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and John.
Karen, thanks so much. It's that time of year. Michael McKee enters the studio where we really need to talk about Bruins hockey.
Okay.
Flyers wins.
Okay.
Devils win. Bruins 2-0. The Bruins look loaded this year. But there's a few other topics to speak to our
not ready
economics
for winter yet. unfortunately. I like summer.
It was more sane when they started October 1, but they started early. They've ruined it like all the other
So they
sports.
start in September. When does it finish?
They used to start October 10th.
June.
No,
finishes in
John,
June.
John,
Are you
this is the
serious?
third rail. It used to end, John, at a normal time, like, a little bit of chill in the streets. Now it goes, what, Mike? Third week of June?
Depending on how many games they all go. Yep.
John, lead our conversation with Czar McKee.
Well, what I think is interesting about the last 24 hours is obviously quite clearly people gripped by the events in Washington, D.C., but beneath the radar, some really interesting comments from the regional Fed presidents, Mike. Evans being one of them, Bullard being another, and approaching this wait-and-see situation.
Oh, Evans didn't mince words.
What do you think about that, Mike? Just gradually shifting towards a position where the FOMC coalesces around the idea that we just sit here and we wait and we do nothing.
Well, that was it. It's interesting because that was the message that Jay Powell essentially delivered at the press conference, and the markets bought that the day of the press conference, and now they've gone the other way and priced in a third rate cut this year. So one side or the other has to be right about the U.S. economy. The interest rate sensitive sector of the economy that reported last week, all the housing data, was stronger than anticipated. If we see that continue and we don't get any real good data until next week, but we get a lot of data next week, then it's going to be harder to make the case for a rate cut. I think the Fed is positioning itself to tell people don't get ahead of yourself.
The data we've had so far this week, let's take stock of that. Has that been good enough to underpin, reinforce that message?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen any collapses anywhere. We get the second revision of second quarter GDP today, which doesn't make a whole lot of difference in about 10 minutes. It's a 2% growth rate. But we have seen the Atlanta Fed GDP numbers for the third quarter come up to around 2%. They were below 1 at one point. So the numbers have gotten back to about where we were, and the economy seems to be sort of treading water.
We haven't seen a collapse in the data that led to a rate cut to begin with. Are we saying the bar is now higher than it was at a previous meeting, at the next meeting?
That's what they seem to be telling us, that we want to see real evidence that something is affecting the economy. Now, we saw the drop in consumer confidence, but does that translate into a drop in spending? That's what they'll want to see.
Are the dots dead?
They should be, but they're not dead. Wall Street still follows them. There does seem to be a better understanding that they aren't a promise of which way policy is going to go.
What's the next gimmick to run a non-theory founded Fed? I mean, the Fed's making it up as it goes. The cynics would say, what replaces the dot is the tool or fixation to get us meeting to meeting.
There doesn't seem to be one. It seems to be a combination of employment it's a lagging number, but it's sort of the wages part of it will give the Fed some information about what the possibilities for growth ahead are. GDP numbers to the extent that they tell us what happened at a particular moment in time, and they'll continue to watch the headlines as we all do on trade.
Yeah. Well, that's right where I want to go. Joyce Ching at J.P. Morgan says they are now modeling 0.4 percentage points of GDP in, and they're working on a number of the tariff costs per household to our listeners. Have you calculated or have you seen research that calculates the tariff impact per person, per household, per community?
Well, it's hard to calculate because the tariffs have come in stages and then been walked back and moved forward. But from what we have so far, I've seen numbers around $700 per household in the United States impact so far, which of course could get much worse if we go through the whole litany of tariffs that are threatened, but we'll see. Part of the problem is you can average it out over the population, but when you think about the products, the average person doesn't buy all those products, so the impact is going to be greater on some and lesser on a lot.
The tariffs are going up again in the middle of October, I believe.
Maybe.
That's the latest. That's the latest line in the sand. Mike, is that avoidable? Do the talks that take place in early October establish a path that helps us avoid an escalation?
Well, yeah. There's two ways it can happen. One, they could actually make progress in the talks and back off as a sign of goodwill, or Donald Trump could be in trouble with the headlines about impeachment and things like that and want to distract everybody and just make an announcement that he's going to take that off. And that would probably send Wall Street a little bit higher. And then he can, another shiny object, Wall Street, and take a look at this.
20 seconds. Who are you following? Who's the voice on the Fed parlor game that matters to you?
I thought you were talking about on the Bruins this year. At this point, you know who's going to speak today and is not going to be talking about those things, but maybe because we don't see him don't see Jay Powell that often, watch Rich Clarida. Okay. John Williams has been saying we're on hold kind of for the time being, but we do see in a couple of weeks, we do see Jay Powell speaking at the NABE meeting in Denver. We'll be there for that.
Very good.
Watching what he has to say.
Michael McKee, thank you so much. Our chief
Joy Denver,
correspondent worldwide as well. Futures up 7, Dow futures up 69. Somebody asked me about this song. Stephen Stills in a studio with Jimi Hendrix 3 weeks before CSN recorded Woodstock. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stock futures point to gains at the open on Wall Street as investors await the next developments in a week dominated by trade confusion and political drama. S&P futures up 6, NASDAQ futures up 11, Dow futures up 70. Crude oil is little changed at $56.48 a barrel. Bloomberg has learned that the Justice Department intends to investigate Facebook after prodding from U.S. Attorney General William Barr. The social media giant now faces parallel probes by 2 federal agencies over whether it has harmed competition in violation of antitrust laws. The 2 federal inquiries are in addition to investigations by state attorneys general and the House Judiciary Committee. Facebook's virtual reality unit Oculus has announced Facebook Horizon, a virtual world where you can interact with others as digital avatars. The product will launch as a closed beta test next year. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
All money managers might seem the same, but while some give their clients cookie-cutter portfolios, Fisher Investments tailors portfolios to your goals and needs. Some only call when they have something to sell. Fisher calls regularly, so you stay informed. And while some advisors are happy to earn commissions whether you do well or not, Fisher Investments fees are structured so we do better when you do better. In other words, we're on your side. Maybe that's why most of our clients come from other money managers. So if you're in or nearing retirement, talk with us and find out why investors are switching to and staying with Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments. Clearly better money management. Investments in securities involve the risk of loss. Visit us at FisherInvestments.com to find out what we can do for you.
At Argos, our toy event is on. Join in the fun with up to half-price savings on hundreds of top brand toys, including Nerf and LOL Surprise. Enjoy same-day home delivery 7 days a week.
Yay for play!
With Argos, you're good to go. Offer ends the 1st of October. Delivery conditions apply, subject to availability. Selected lines. Order by 6 p.m. 90% UK coverage.
At Jet2 Holidays, we offer you the full package. Flights, transfers, accommodation, and 22 kilograms of baggage included. But that's not all. We also give you peace of mind because we've been named a Which recommended provider for package holidays. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APTRA NATO protected.
We could play epic music, or we could speak in an overdramatic tone, or even set off fireworks. But that's just not smarty. Instead, we let our offer do the talking. Right now, you can grab 25% off our unlimited data SIM. That's just $18.75 a month with no speed restrictions, no credit check, and no long contract to tie you in. Now that's smarty. Just search Smarty Mobile and switch today. It's easy. Offer available for a limited time only. See smarty.co.uk for terms.
To succeed in small business, you need technology that runs efficiently. When you partner with a Dell Small Business Technology Advisor, you get advice, one-on-one partnership, and tailored productivity solutions, including computers with Intel Core processors, servers, storage, networking, plus industry-leading monitors and accessories. It's how they help your small business make the most of every minute. To speak with an advisor today, call 0800 085 4878. That's 0800 085 4878.
I am a force for good.
I am a force for courage.
And for calm. I am a force for safety.
For fairness.
For leadership.
I am a force for the future.
For compassion.
For my community.
I am a police officer. And I am a force for all.
Be one of the 20,000 new police officers and be a force for all that you believe in. Search Join the Police.
The biggest cat in the world was longer than a cricket bat. Think that's big?
This Friday's Euro Millions jackpot is an unmissable £167 million. 167 million! Now that's big.
Euro Millions from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here.
Estimated jackpot is capped at €190 million. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
From New York City, this is Bloomberg Surveillance live on Bloomberg Radio, where your economic indicators are always brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the sixth straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit wealth.com to learn more. Let's get you some economic data, shall we? Let's cross over to Vinny Dowd-Giudice.
Okay, Jonathan, let's start with GDP. Second quarter revision holding steady at 2%. No change there. Driven by consumer spending. Business investment, of course, has been subdued, shall we say. A lot of that has to do with White House tariffs. Now, there's a bit of an inflation pop in this report. Core PCE quarter over quarter, second quarter 1.9% versus 1.7%. Jobless claims meantime bouncing around close to historic lows, 213,000 last week. We also have figures on merchandise trade, $72.8 billion in August versus $72.5 billion. Quickly, Friday, the report on consumer spending. Keep an eye on that. I'm Vinny Dowd-Giudice. Let's go back to New York.
Vinny, thanks so much. We're going to digress to China right now. We can do that with Joyce Chang. She's with J.P. Morgan running all of research. Joyce, there is the ubiquitous 1911 Chinese imperial government railroad bonds that J.P. Morgan helped underwrite. It was an important moment in Chinese history. It led to all sorts of turmoil, but it goes to the depth of J.P. Morgan perspective on China, and that depth involves an economic slowdown right now, 6%, and you would suggest a vector that's even under 5%. Can you explain to me the political outcome of a 5.4 or 5.1 or dare I say 4.9% Chinese economic growth?
Well, over the next decade, China's growth is going to 4.5%, but we're going to see it sub 6% next year. We have 5.8% in our forecast, and all eyes are on the U.S.-China talks on trade. We've taken about 0.4% off of China's growth this year, just with the tariff measures that have been put into place. And, this has knock-on effects globally. Every 1% decline in China's growth is about 0.4% off of global growth. And that has ramifications for Europe, which is much more trade reliant than some other parts of the world, and also for Asia, where you still have 40% of trade, out of Asia. So this is something that, we're going to be watching over the longer term, not just with every iteration of the trade discussions, but as a longer term factor as we look at the growth forecasts and the recession risk in the global economy.
Joyce, how does that shape the character of the policy response in China? What are you looking for in the coming 12 months?
Well, we've seen RRR cuts from China's central bank, and I think more of that will be forthcoming. But we've also seen is that they've gravitated to trying to use, tax cuts to see if they can stimulate consumption. So I think that you're going to see more of a response, on the fiscal side. You're going to see them, I think, rely less on increasing the debt. The debt has been a problem in China. You've got a debt ratio in the high 200% of GDP, and you already have a fairly high fiscal deficit, as well when you look at the local government financing vehicles. So I think, the income tax cuts that we've seen, things like perhaps, reducing the size of the Social Security contribution, but ways in which they can actually use more of these measures to try to stimulate the economy.
Through the growth scare of 15-16, Joyce, you'll know better than most, the response was rather different. It was about pumping credit back into the system and doing it quite aggressively. Is there a trigger point that you have in mind? But it's not sub 6%. What is it that moves China away from this targeted, gradual policy response to the slowdown they're experiencing?
Well, there are constraints constraints in China, the size of the fiscal deficit, if you look at this consolidated, is north of 11% of GDP. And this is why creating more debt really isn't an option for them. And there had been a focus on deleveraging, and basically keeping that debt ratio stable and trying to bring it down gradually over time. So China, like many central banks, does not have as many tools as it had at the time of the global financial crisis. I mean, a decade ago, China's stimulus was north of 7% of GDP.
Yeah.
And there's just not the scope to provide that type of stimulus anymore.
With great respect, Joyce, I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but to get away from Shanghai, Beijing, and Hong Kong and the cursory analysis someone like me makes, if I go inland to Changsha, where Mao Zedong began his communist experiment, there's a city with a lot of foreign direct investment. It's something nobody talks about. What does all this mean for a city that's off our radar? I mean, if we get 5.2% GDP, if we get President Trump firm in his trade war, what's it mean to Changsha?
Well, I think that you are seeing a slowdown that's going to hit those cities more because you've had overcapacity in many of those cities. I think one thing that everybody's looking very closely at is the property market because that has actually held in pretty well. But I think that you're going to see more of an impact going forward. But I think China is very committed to doing this gradually. They still have a couple of fiscal measures that they can put into place right now. But the property market is going to be one gauge of how this is playing out across some of the smaller to medium-sized cities.
Joyce, thank you for the update.
Thanks, Joyce.
Greatly appreciate it. Joyce
Always
Chang,
smart.
running a huge platform for Mr. Diamond at J.P. Morgan this morning. Futures up 6, Dow futures up 66. John and I watching yields. I guess, we had some volatility the last 48 hours in yields, but the vector's lower. I mean, 30-year bond, 2.14 handle.
Yields up as much as they were down in the previous couple of days, going from Monday into Tuesday into Wednesday. This Thursday, yields coming lower by 3 basis points, 170 on a 10-year. Your 30-year yield around about 215.
What's the significance of sterling in 123.49? Is that a Boris Johnson weaker sterling?
I just think we're in no man's land on cable and have been for the last couple of weeks, Tom. Whenever we're in and around 125, people just don't know what to do with it. And they don't know what happens next.
Yeah, I'm looking at the headlines right now. Bloomberg has been streaming Edward Evans and our Brexit team, and there's no recent headlines, I would say, on the Johnson backbenchers watch as well. And John, we're 20 minutes away from really a mystery testimony.
About 24 minutes away. Yeah, that testimony coming from the acting director of National Intelligence, Joseph Maguire, testifying before the House Intelligence Committee.
We're getting the first images just came up on our screen here.
We will be going to full coverage of that, I believe, for the Q&A a little bit later this morning.
And now with the news in New York City, here's Michael Barr.
Tom, Jonathan, thank you very much. Let's talk more about that. House Democrats have lots of questions for Acting Director of National Intelligence, Joseph Maguire, today. They say the secret whistleblower complaint involving President Donald Trump is deeply disturbing. They are now mulling Trump's impeachment and are hoping Maguire will explain why he withheld the complaint from Congress for weeks. The document is at the center of a firestorm about Trump's handling of Ukraine. Bloomberg will bring you Maguire's testimony live in less than a half hour from now. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing a backlash over his use of harsh confrontational language in Parliament the day after suffering a broad defeat in the Supreme Court. Johnson has characterized an opposition bill mandating a Brexit extension as a surrender bill and brushed off concerns that his language might endanger legislators as humbug. Some in Parliament warned that his language was inflammatory and should be more cautious given the 2016 killing of legislator Joe Cox. Jacques Chirac, a two-term French president who was the first leader to acknowledge France's role in the Holocaust and defiantly opposed the U.S. invasion of Iraq in 2003, has died at age 86. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts, more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg, Tom.
Michael, thanks so much. Time now for the Bloomberg NBC Sports Report, brought to you by Burden Accountants and Advisors. Here's John Stashauer.
Tom, it was a two-game series where the Yankees wanted to win. They had hopes of overcoming Houston for the home field advantage. Those hopes look bleak now. It's the Rays who needed to win. They're in a fight to make it to the wild card game at Tampa Bay. Swept the series the night after winning 2-1 in 12 innings. They won 4-0. Charlie Morton and the Rays bullpen allowed Aaron Boone's team to get only one hit.
Well, I mean, this is what they're capable of. I mean, this is a big reason why they're in this position and fighting for a playoff spot is because they can really pitch, and their run prevention is really good. You know, if you're not really on top of your game up and down the lineup, you know, they can have nights like this, and especially when they, you know, turn to, you know, Charlie, who's been their ace, and he's on top of his game. But no question, these two games, they very much kept us quiet.
The Rays and Oakland A's have the lead for the wild card spots. Minnesota clinched the AL Central, almost certainly be the Yankees' ALDS opponent. Houston would then face the wild card winner. The Astros won last night in Seattle. Zach Greinke had a no-hitter going with one out of the ninth inning. Milwaukee Brewers also celebrated last night. They got red hot in September. They clinched at least a wild card. They could still win the division. No postseason for the Mets. They did beat Miami 10-3. They were up 9-0 in the third inning. Jacob deGrom helped his cause for winning a second straight Cy Young Award, and Pete Alonso belted his major league leading 51st home run. He needs one more to tie Aaron Judge's record for most by a rookie. NFL Week 4 kicks off tonight in the NFC. Green Bay's already 3-0 and hosting Philadelphia, who's lost its last two. The Giants will host Washington Sunday. They likely won't have a key defender. Linebacker Alec Ogletree's got an injured hamstring. With the Bloomberg NBC Sports Update, I'm John Stashower. Tom?
John, thanks so much. Tim Anderson, Chicago White Sox, Jordan Alvarez, Houston Astros, and Michael Barr, Bloomberg Business of Sports. Pete Alonso of the New York Mets. Did we know who he was in spring training?
No, and I love the way he looked good in spring training, but you didn't see this coming. 51 home runs?
55-1.
Yeah,
that's the edge of Roger Maris.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Very cool. Pete Alonso, the Mets, congratulations. Great season. This is Bloomberg.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces, just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Why has J.D. Power ranked Commonwealth Financial Network #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms for the 6th straight time? We think it comes down to one thing: you. Because it's your input and feedback that keeps us focused on what's most important to you and your clients and continually pushes us to be the best we can be. Maybe that's why we receive top marks in every category of the J.D. Power 2019 Advisor Satisfaction Survey. They named us #1 in client support, #1 in firm leadership, #1 in operational support, #1 in compensation, #1 in professional development support, and #1 in technology support. Ready to partner with the best? Call Commonwealth at 866-462-3638 or visit commonwealth.com and feel the power. Member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor. For 2019 J.D. Power